starting to take your music production and songwriting seriously? Do you think that you have what it takes to make a living in the music industry? Well, this marketing podcast is there to help music producers and artists to begin building a foundation to grow their music companies from the bedroom to the boardroom. And now, here's your host, Brennan Lewin.
What's going on, everyone? This is Brennan over at EQ Productions. This is episode 9 of my music marketing podcast. And today I kind of wanted to dive in and talk a lot about Facebook and Instagram advertising because I've been getting a lot of questions about it. I often post some of my campaigns that I run. And so I get questions from people looking to start promoting their music, start to advertise their beats online. And, you know, it becomes one of those things that once you learn and you see the potential in Facebook advertising, you basically stop doubting that, you know, Facebook ads don't work, and you stop looking at it as kind of a waste of money, and you start seeing it as a potential, you know, humongous traffic opportunity, because that's really what it is. I mean, Facebook, if you consider what Facebook really is, it's, you know, it's a social network, of course, but rather it's a data mine. And when I say a data mine, what it is basically an operation that Facebook kind of buried underneath its whole social network aspect, where people connect with their family and friends. And they made it into a data collection kind of a procedure where all the posts, all the things you like, all the websites you visit, everything you share, people you connect with, brands that you've, you know, liked or followed, purchases you've made online, you know, anything to do with sharing news articles or even your affiliation politically is being recorded by Facebook. Now, what that means is basically is for somebody like me, an advertiser, I have an enormous amount of data that I'm not necessarily readily, you know, able to access, but it gives me the opportunity to target specific audience that allows me to sell products, sell services, do whatever it is that I do online that, you know, involves advertising. And it gives me metrics, it gives me ability to target specific audiences, exclude specific audiences, you know, focus on specific locations. So I'm not wasting my money advertising to everybody. And the problem in the advertising world is this: there's so many people that it kind of confuses and almost intimidates people that look to advertise and look to start advertising online, but they have no idea how to do it. So they either jam everything into, you know, one campaign or one ad set, or they just kind of, you know, stab in the dark until they hit something. And usually that doesn't happen. You can't really, in advertising, I mean, yes, you could get lucky. We all get lucky. But more times than none, you'll lose your money. And I tell everybody that's starting out in Facebook ads, I mean, luckily for me, I've been in it a few years already, and I kind of got my, you know, I got my bearings, and I got kind of grounded, and I learned some techniques and some strategies. And for people looking to start in Facebook advertising, they have this instant gratification kind of an idea that they want to see instant results. They want to put some money on an ad set, and they want to put, you know, some money on a campaign, and they want to see immediate results, and they want to see, you know, numbers climbing and conversions happening and people interacting with their copy and their content. And unfortunately, that's just not how it works. And so Facebook needs time to figure out who, what, where, why, and how, so they could show your ad to the right people, saving you money. And a lot of people talk about, you know, well, I don't have a budget. Well, you don't need a big budget to advertise on Facebook. I mean, I know people that spend $5, $10 a day, and they end up bringing that back 4 or 5 times. I mean, look, I work for North American Entertainment. We run a ton of campaigns. I do a lot of advertising, and I, you know, run damn near, I don't know, maybe 14 campaigns per tour, you know, so it's a lot. And I happen to be able to play with the house money, so I'm not in the same situation as a lot of advertisers where they have to spend their own money and they got to watch every cent. And I watch every cent, don't get me wrong. But nevertheless, it's still a situation where I'm able to kind of play around and figure strategies out. And if something doesn't work, well, it's bad, but it's not as bad as if I was kind of flying solo on my own. So I'm lucky enough to have that. But at the same time, for anybody who's starting out in Facebook advertising or starting out in Instagram advertising, which is basically the same platform, you got to realize that there's going to be a money loss. You're going to lose money, and you're going to spend money, and you're not going to make money back right away, and you're going to try to figure things out, and you're going to have loss, and you're going to have a lot of frustration and agitation that, you're not seeing these instant kind of results, and you have to be okay with that, right? So I kind of want to give you guys kind of like this high view. I want to talk to you a little bit about what I go through, what my experiences were in Facebook ads, and why I feel like Facebook ads work well if you know what you're doing, if you have a strategy. Otherwise, if you're trying to sell something to somebody and they never really heard of you and they never experienced anything to do with you and they don't know who you are and they don't trust you, you kind of got to think, why would somebody like that give you money? I mean, why would somebody who wants to, spend their money on whatever it is that they need to spend their money on, all of a sudden is going to give it to you and you're a nobody to them? You haven't proved yourself. You're not a name brand. You're not a household name for them to kind of immediately trust. And most of the time, the products you're selling, first and foremost, are readily available online, usually for free. And I'm talking to all my producers. Yes, you could use Facebook to sell music, and you could use Facebook to sell beats and production, but you got to remember, there's people out there giving away beats for free. So that already is your major competition. How do you compete with free? You know what I mean? How do you compete with that? Now, me personally, I've never been a fan of selling price. And what I mean by selling price is, a lot of people, I'll take whatever off. I'll take 25% off. Or this is the lowest price on the market and I'm the cheapest guy around. You're not going to get a price lower than me. And I always use, Ferrari versus Ford or any of the name brand, luxury vehicles versus the kind of like the entry level vehicles like a Ford Fiesta or whatever. Now, why would somebody spend the money on Ferrari, right, when they could just go buy a Fiesta? I mean, the Fiesta will get them to the same place, might not even cost as much in gas, and it's much cheaper vehicle, So Ferrari has to work and position and brand itself in a way that makes the people that do shop for Ferraris, the 1%, the high income earners, and, they go into these dealerships and they're not just test driving the car for the hell of it, and usually you won't even be able to test drive a car unless unless they know you're serious. So nobody's giving you a Ferrari for a test drive, that's for sure. But there is still an audience of people that spend money and don't really care much about the price. Of course, they'll look and see if the price is fair and if they're getting screwed, but they're not buying a vehicle because it's $20,000 as opposed to $150,000. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. Price doesn't sell the product. What sells the product is the salesperson or the marketing or the advertising. So whether your copy is on point or your offer is on point or the demo of your targeting is on point, or even if you do target based on interest, if that's all on point, that's great. Price doesn't do it alone. You don't have to sell somebody based on price. You don't have to sell. Here's an example. So if you're a producer and you sell beats, most people when they start marketing do the same thing as everyone else, and that's they try to figure out how they could bring in a large audience or heavy traffic to their business and how they could actually convert them into buyers. And it usually starts with them looking at their own products and going, I got all these products or all these beats and everything like that, and I need to just sell them, and how can I sell them to the customers? The one thing they never do is they never look to see what the customer needs, and they never do their homework and their research. So when you do that, and that kind of goes to show you that you don't sell your products based on the price. You don't even sell them based on the product. You sell them based on resolving your customers' needs, right? So when you run Facebook ads, you don't run them because you have a product to sell. You run them because there is an audience of your potential customers or clients or whatever you want to call them, and they need your product, and they could get your product elsewhere. So what is your competitive advantage? What would make somebody come to you as opposed to go to your competitor and buy from them? Now, if you understand that, you understand how to structure your advertising, because you understand that the certain type of clientele resides in a certain location, or whether they hang out in a certain area, or if they're online in a certain group, or you could find them on certain websites or whatever. Big understanding of your audience is primary. So you have to understand who your audience is first and foremost. And so when you get to running your Facebook ads, you're not just running ads to everybody who lives in New York City or everybody who lives in LA. Because there's no way in hell you're ever going to market a product. Chances are, and I'm assuming that the chances are pretty damn high that you're not marketing water and you're not marketing air. And you're marketing a product that's already available to the public en masse, and that's just something that you have to just fight a battle just to kind of deal with. So how do you separate yourself from the masses? How do you break away from, the stream of music producers that just every day just drop hours and hours and terabytes of music on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram? How do you compete in that? And I always, I see these people that, again, I keep bringing it up, the inbox spamming. Same thing. Every day people go in my inbox and they send link. And every day I tell them, listen, start learning advertising because you're wasting your time and you're not being successful with your advertising. And understanding your audience, knowing where they hang out, knowing who they are, knowing what they're into, help you to start identify who these people are. And when you figure that out, you'll know, not only who they are, but what their issues are, what their problems are, what they need to overcome. And you can start positioning your offer kind of right in front of them as they're passing you by. You want to position your offer just to kind of be like, hey, listen, I could solve your problems. I could provide you, with a solution to whatever you're going through, whatever your issue is. And that's how sales work in essence. I mean, you sell people products to fix problems, right? So, you sell a beat to a rapper looking for a specific beat. If he's a boom bap rapper, and he likes the 90s style beats, you're not going to get him with a trap beat. So for you to go and trying to randomly just blasting out links to your trap beats and hitting 70% boom bap MCs, that's just not going to be good enough. You're going to waste a whole lot of effort. You're going to put time and energy into it, and you're not going to get anything out of it. So understanding your audience is huge. You want to understand who your people are, what they're into, what kind of music they're into, where they hang out, do they subscribe to Spotify, iTunes, whether or not they actually buy beats or if they even shop online at all. Some people don't have bank accounts, some people don't have credit cards. So if you're going to be running ads, you need to understand that you need to have multiple ways to actually track your progress. And if somebody doesn't have a bank account and can't buy your beats online, chances are you may want to exclude that person from your targeting, right? Because even though they may spend money, you might not be able to get it from them because they're too far away. So if somebody lives in California, doesn't have a credit card, well, what are you going to do? You're going to make them jump through hoops to go get one of them green dot cards and put money on it and just to come buy your beats? What the hell for? They're going to go on YouTube, find a free beat and rock out. So understand who your audience is usually the first thing I mention when I talk about Facebook ads, because again, it's the biggest, almost the lowest hanging fruit that people just ignore, and they just move on to the more difficult things that they feel is more important, like targeting. But, what are you targeting? If you don't know who your audience is, then how can you target them, right? So, and that kind of brings me to my next point, where interest targeting, is super important in Facebook, but people use that as kind of like a, end all be all. They use interest targeting as the only way to reach out to their customer base. And ever since I found custom audiences and even, getting into the lookalikes, now, if you guys aren't familiar with a lookalike audience is, even what a custom audience is, let me backtrack a little bit and give you guys a little, background on what custom audience is. Now, custom audience is a way that Facebook segments the traffic that you've had either to your landing page, whether it's on your website or elsewhere, people interacting with your Facebook page, people, interacting with your Facebook events if you run events, or even if you collect email addresses and you want to import your CSV file into Facebook, Facebook will actually go and search all those emails out, make sure that they're legitimate, and actually start showing ads specifically to that list. So these are all ways to create custom audiences. Custom audiences are great because you don't have to trial and error new clients, right? You already have these people interacting with you. They have, they've shown engagement. They've actually shown some type of activity and been to your website. So they've proved themselves to be interested in something that you do. Granted, it's not always interest. They might just be accidental clicks. People land on the wrong page. They might have typed something in incorrectly. Who knows? And that's just those outliers. I don't really want to focus on that. But for the most part, people that end up in your custom audiences were meant to end up there. And it helps you actually reach out to those same people over and over again to get your messaging out to them and not have them, be surprised as to who the heck you are, why your ads are being shown on their timeline. So custom audiences for me and for what I do for my daily job they're second to none, right? And now that I've really figured out lookalikes, which lookalikes are custom audiences that were used to create additional audiences of people that resemble customer base in your custom audiences. So if your custom audience is, let's say, for example, people who've been to your landing pages and didn't buy, right? That's your custom audience. Now, a lookalike of that would be people that go to landing pages and don't buy. Now, you may not want to do that. You may want to create a lookalike audience of people that go to landing pages and purchase. But chances are a lot of times you're going to have a lot smaller audiences because, obviously the purchasers versus non-purchasers, there's a huge difference. So depending on what your strategy is and depending on what your goal is for your campaign, and I want to always give you examples to make you understand what it is that I'm talking about. If you're a music producer and you sell beats, custom audience would be people who go to your BeatStars account, land on a specific page, listen to your beats, and don't buy. What you could do is you could create a custom audience of just those people. And then you could send out an ad targeting just those people saying, hey, I've seen that you went to my page, didn't buy. I'll give you a free beat if you check out right now, that type of stuff. So you could create custom messaging specifically for people that shown interest into your BeatStars account or anything else to do with online activity, but they've shown interest, and now you want to retarget them, and you want to say, hey, listen, I know you've been to my site, you've seen and listened to my music, and there was probably something that kept you from buying. Here's an additional offer to nudge you in the direction of purchase. It's kind of one of those things where if you know how to build custom audiences, not only will you have additional chances to target those people if they didn't buy it, but now you could also create these lookalikes, and the lookalike will be people who went and loaded completely, your landing page, looked around, and didn't purchase. Not necessarily would be your landing page, but it'd be a landing page, and these people would be considered the right audience for you and be added to your lookalike audience. And at that point, you have this traffic source, these lookalike audiences that use a percentage of the United States population, which then you limit by geo-targeting, which is location-based, and you apply additional interest targeting. So the success that I'm seeing with these audiences, especially these lookalikes, is that I'm getting access to what Facebook considers the proper audience of people that fit the criteria, that match, people that have already been to my website or engaged with my posts or ads or in some sort of way. And it puts people in these audiences, and now I can target them, and it saves me tons of time, and it saves me tons of stress of trying to test different interest targets and so on and so forth. So it becomes much easier, much more manageable process where I don't have to sit there and try to, okay, so I'm selling beats, and I want to select the person that da-da-da-da. If they've already been to your website and heard the music, you don't have to target them through interest. You have to target them based on custom audiences, and you have to say, okay, I just want to send this ad just to people who've been to my website and listen to my beats. And that's the beauty of custom audiences. And then the lookalikes would be people who would have went to BeatStars, would have listened to beats, and then you could target them as well. That's been so successful for us. I ran a campaign in Dallas for a hip-hop show that we're doing over there, Legends of Hip Hop. And we killed it. We made like $30,000 off of it. I think we spent like $1,200. And so the return was ridiculous, and it just really, really worked out great because we, leveraged these lookalike audiences and these custom audiences. And so I would strongly recommend, if you haven't yet, really dig into these audiences and how to build them and what they are. And it's really simple. You just have to really understand the process. And, I would recommend spending some time and really just trying to put them together. Maybe just look around and read all the instructionals and then maybe create a custom audience and see how it fills up. But it's really not that much work, and it's not that much, science behind it. Just on your end, you just have to kind of click a few buttons and copy paste a link, and you should be all set. So that's a really great way to target people without really having to do the interest targeting each and every time. Another thing I want to talk about is placements. Now, placements on Facebook, what I mean by that is where you place your ads. A lot of people just automatically leave all placements, and even though you're giving your ad more areas to run, meaning that it could run on Facebook feeds, instant articles, Instagram feeds and stories, and then you're getting into the audience network, which, is banners and interstitials. And even though you're giving you're at a lot of data points to cover. The problem is a lot of those data points and this is all my experience. I'm not going to necessarily say that they work or don't work. From my experience, the best places to really run your ads is in Facebook feed and an Instagram feed. Now, I even separate my Instagram and Facebook feeds into two different ad sets. So I'll create one campaign and multiple ad sets under that campaign, and then separate all my, placements, all my targeting. Sometimes I'll even do age. Now, our age brackets, I don't really like to do that. That gets kind of long and sloppy. But sometimes just to test out to see which audience responds better, which audience doesn't respond better, I'll do different ad sets where I'll target women 25 to 35 and another one that I'll target women 36 to 45. So I'll do two different age brackets and to see how they perform against each other. And the beautiful thing about separating everything is when you separate things, you're able to turn things on and off without disturbing everything else. So if you bulk everything into one ad set, and you put all the targeting, all the age demos, everything, all the locations, all in one ad set, and then you wonder what's not working, you'll never be able to figure it out because you have so many data points, and Facebook is just struggling to figure out, well, I need to find a person that does this, and this location, that location. That's a lot of work for them, and they're basically going to either rank your ad lower, not show it to as many people, hit you for a big cost per click, and it's just going to ruin your budget. And I usually recommend, if you're going to test or if you're just starting out, don't lump everything all in the same ad set. Make sure that you're doing different ad sets. So back talking about the placements, Facebook feeds is where people scroll on their phones, on their laptops. Their eyes usually are drawn to stories on their feeds, whether it's a friend, family, or otherwise, whether it's a video or a picture or so on. They're usually trained right on their Facebook feed. So that is the most optimal place to place your ads. So when Facebook is showing your impressions, you want them to primarily be seen on the Facebook feed, right? Because that's where people's eyes are. Sometimes right column is okay, although I'm not a big fan of it. I don't usually look at the right column. I kind of ignore it. And a lot of people, and this kind of goes for advertising as a whole, a lot of people ignore a lot of advertising, period. So when they say don't use stock photography or don't use, recycled stuff, always trying to be authentic, it's really important because we as a people, because we're forced to see so much advertising every day, that we start to ignore it. We become blind to it, rather. And so when you become blind to advertising, that means I, as an advertiser, am paying for you not to see my ad. And that's not what I'm going for. So I need to put my ads right where your eyes are. And instead of making you divert your attention and be disruptive, I just want to put it right in the stream of traffic that's going by and just slip my ad in there and, have it be shown to the right people and have it be placed in the right place where people's eyes are, Now, me personally, I don't even go to websites that much, unless either I'm working on them or it's a music website like, Sweetwater or something where I could purchase equipment, or even eBay or, Amazon. I don't really go to websites. So if you think about how you browse the internet, you don't really go to too many websites unless you really, really need to. And then when you're there, you're not really clicking banners, right? You're not going to some website and going, oh, look, blah, 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 I need this, and then you click on a banner. That doesn't happen. And if it does, the numbers are just dismal. And Facebook wants to force you to use all these other, methods of placement so you could spend more money. And not that necessarily they want you to lose, but it's just like any other business. They want to upsell you to get you to buy all these other placements so you could put your ads. And you'll notice that, once you look at your metrics and your analytics, you notice that most of your sales or most of your engagement, most of your activity as a whole comes from your Facebook feed. It doesn't come from, audience networks, even Messenger. I kind of find that, advertising in Messenger is a little silly. I haven't really responded well to it when I see it in my Messenger inbox, but that's just, that's me, and I'm an advertiser, so I can't really speak from that. But as in essence, putting your ads on all these third-party networks, or running in-stream videos, or running these interstitials or banners on all these different sites, you could see success with it depending on the site, depending on the traffic the site gets or what the site's about. But usually, as kind of a rule of law, I don't really waste my time with placing ads on anything other than Facebook feed, right? So test it out, see how it works for you, but chances are you agree with me that you're just really going to spend your money on the Facebook feed and Instagram feed as well. So that's really important. So now let's circle back to custom audiences and actually creating them, and how certain audience creation setup could benefit somebody like a music producer. So if you're a music producer and you sell beats, what I would do is I would create a custom audience. I would go into my my audiences in my asset library, and I would click custom audience, and I would select website traffic. What I would do at that point is I would select the pixel that I've been using on my website. So you'll usually have, a Facebook pixel ID that gets placed on a BeatStars site, and then they will track all data from your site, and they'll report it to Facebook. Every time the visitor lands on your homepage or lands on your landing page, Facebook pixel will fire. It will let Facebook know, okay, such and such, customer landed on the page. Here's its Facebook ID. Here's all the other, pertinent data. What do you do then? So now at this point, when you go into your audiences in your asset library and you create a custom audience, you select the pixel, you go down to where it says all website visitors, and you select people who visited specific web page. So when you do that, you'll have, the number of days that this action happened in. And I usually select 180 days because, granted, there's times where you would select specific amount of days, but I want everybody, and I don't want to kind of alienate anybody from this audience. I want everybody who's been to my BeatStars page in the last 180 days, 6 months, and I will go and find my BeatStars page. I will copy that URL. I go back into the tab with the Facebook custom audience creation, and I would paste it in underneath where it says people who visited specific pages. There's a URL, and the option that I always use is contains, because the contains option, what it does is it looks for the specific URL that you put into the field below, but it doesn't look at it as the end all be all. So, don't use equal unless you really need to. Contains kind of gives you a little wiggle room, so you don't necessarily have to put the www or HTTPS or whatever. You could even copy just the beginning of the URL to where the queries begin, where they start asking for IDs and stuff. And that usually gets separated by a question mark, so you don't have to really worry too much about all the queries. You just have to just grab the URL with the page, and the domain, and post it right in, and just give it a name. Call it, people that have been to my BeatStars page. So I would say BeatStars page visitors. Now we'll create that audience, give it a couple hours, let it kind of formulate and populate, and you'll have an audience that you could start running ads to without having to question whether or not you're targeting the right people with interest, right? So that's a great way of doing it. Now, another thing that I usually do is when I'm inside of custom audiences, and let's say I did what I just talked about, I went in and I selected people who visited specific pages within 180 days, URL that contains a URL of your landing page on your BeatStars account. Then below that, there's two options that say include more and exclude. Now, include more, what you would do then is you would tell Facebook, okay, I want any of these following criteria, whether it's the first criteria, people visiting specific pages, or I could select another criteria, which could be a whole other page, or it could be visitors by time spent on your site, or you could use events like, your purchase, your page view, your view content. And that way you'll also be able to target additional segment of people that are not necessarily the same as your first segment, but it's kind of an either or. Now, you could also do it instead of either or, you could do all criteria. So you would target specifically people who've been to the website and have purchased, or maybe and, spent X amount of time. So, they were listening to music on your site. They weren't just kind of there to click and leave. They spent a significant amount of time. That's really super important. And I would basically say this is kind of a make it or break it for digital marketers. So if you're looking to run advertising on Facebook, this is super important to learn. And you want to make sure you understand not only the concept, but you also understand the strategy behind it. Because sometimes you'll start to target certain people, and you'll target people without thinking, and you'll exclude people that you really do want to target instead. So definitely spend some time with this and play around with it. Again, my favorite way of excluding purchasers is, again, instead of narrowing, I would click exclude, and I would then say people who visited my landing page in the last 180 days, excluding the people who purchased. So now I'm not showing my ad to people who've already purchased beats. Now, if you want to show your ad to people who purchased your beats, you could select and people who purchased beats and then create custom messaging like, hey, thank you so much for purchasing the beat. I want to make you a special offer because you're an existing customer, blah, blah, blah. This offer would not go out to people who didn't buy anything, right? So you see where I'm going with it, I hope? I mean, it's kind of one of these things where you want to select different groups of people, aka different targets, and you want to send them specific messaging because you can't sell things to people who just bought something from you, especially if you're selling the same product, right? So you don't want to pay Facebook to target those people because you're paying them to show your ad to people who've already seen your product, service, or maybe you've already paid for it, and you don't want them anymore, or at least for a while. Now you want people who haven't seen it, and you want to introduce yourself to them, and you want to show your products to them. You don't want to blow your budget advertising to everybody because that's not what this game is about. This game is about showing your product, showing your service to specific customers that shown interest, whether they've been to your website, whether they follow a certain celebrity online, whatever it is. You want to realize what these targets are, who they are, where they hang out, what they do. And you want to make sure that when you're sending out your ads and you're targeting these people, that you're targeting these people because they've shown interest, and then you're using specific messaging and specific creative, which is the video or the imaging that resonates with these people. So there's testing involved. And again, this isn't something I could really explain in a podcast. I just want to kind of give you guys some information and kind of, for those that don't know anything about it, I do consultations. I spend hours with my clients. I take over their screen. I kind of give them, a walkthrough of everything that I just kind of talked about in great detail. And I leave them with an actual campaign that they may then duplicate and run over and over again. They could create campaigns using that template. They could create campaigns like it, and assign different targeting to it. So it's very helpful. And I've been getting great feedback from my clients, for those that I've actually created these campaigns for. Now, I'm not going to sit there and write your copy, and I'm not going to write your headlines or create images or videos for you. So you're going to have that stuff on your own. That's on you. But you tell me as, my client, you would tell me, okay, I'm a music producer and I want to sell trap beats to people who like to rap over trap beats. And I will help you create a campaign with that specific targeting, with that specific strategy. And it becomes one of those things where it immediately eliminates the need for you to sit there and spam people's inboxes. It immediately eliminates the need for you to bother people. You show your marketing, your ad mats, which is advertising materials. So, you don't have to show your ad mats to people that don't care. Like I am one of those people that get to see ad mats every day from people who don't know who I am. I had one kid today. I don't know if he's a kid or a grown man. I didn't really take the time to get to know him too well, but somebody just sent me a message in my Instagram, and it was just a video of them, playing a beat. And it wasn't a video of them making a beat. It was just kind of a marketing video trying to get me to buy a beat from them. It had a link. It had everything you would think that these spam links would have. And I responded to him like, hey, man, like, I don't even like trap beats. Like, why did you send this to me? And he's like, well, I'm just marketing. And I had to explain to him, this is not marketing. You're just annoying people, and you're making customers have bad experience with you, which is a terrible first impression. And you don't even know if I'm the person that you really need to waste your time and energy on. So you're just kind of blindly. And the funny thing is, like, he said it to me. He was like, well, I don't even know who you are. I just wanted you to, I was marketing my music. And I'm like, bro, you're missing the point that you're supposed to know who I am. Maybe you don't know me personally, but you know that I'm a fan of, trap music, or I'm a fan of, I'm a rapper, or I'm a fan of specific artists. that's the stuff you need to know before you start marketing. When you start marketing and you don't know this information, you're kind of putting the carriage in front of the horse, and you're not doing it right. And so I want to stop people from making this mistake and stop people from wasting their time. So, I'm going to kind of start wrapping things up on this, but again, this is one of these type of things that I am always available to answer questions if you have them about Facebook advertising, about Instagram advertising. I'll have a lot of answers for you, hopefully, but a lot of the stuff, there's no answer to it. You just have to test, figure it out, because so many different variations and variables that you can't necessarily say, okay, do X, Y, and Z or A, B, and C, and you're going to get success. It doesn't work that way. But if you use solid logic and you study and you figure out who your audience is, and you work on, creating your copy, which is the text, which covers headlines, and as well as body text, we actually describe what the ad is about, but then you also need to worry about, the videos and the creative, the image stuff, so you want to have your visuals done right, because you could have everything right, and if the video doesn't really hit with people, or if the image doesn't capture people, nothing else is going to matter. So again, for everybody listening, you can find me at EQ Productions, that ECUE Productions with the letter S on the end, at Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You could also check me out on my website. That's www.eqproductions.com. That's ECUEPRODUCTIONS.com. I have tons of articles on there. I have guides that help you with Facebook ads and other forms of marketing, especially if you're a musician or an artist or a producer. And I also do, like I said, I do consultations. If you have any questions, you could visit my website, and you could, schedule something, with me right on the website. You don't necessarily have to reach out. You could do everything right through my online planner. Again, folks, best of luck to you in your advertising endeavors. If you're running Facebook ads or you're running Instagram ads, there's tons of people. I always talk about Russell Brunson. Always talk about Den Henry, who I had the pleasure of taking his course. Really recommend it. It's really great. If you have questions, always reach out to me, and we will talk to you guys next week.